Hi there! In today's video, we are going to be covering the last concept in the CRAP design series, which is contrast. But first, let's recap what CRAP stands for. CRAP stands for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And if you've been following us from the beginning, you know that we've been working our way backwards, which means that we have already covered proximity, alignment, and repetition. If you're just tuning in, I would highly recommend starting from the beginning and watching our first video in the series, which covered proximity. I also want to mention that this design principle comes from the Non-Designer's Design book, which we highly recommend giving a read for a more in-depth analysis on each concept. Let's get right into contrast. The main purpose of contrast, much like the other concepts, is to organize and to add visual interest to your piece. What exactly is contrast? Contrast is taking two items that are not exactly the same and making them different, very different. And in the quest to find difference, this is one of the most fun concepts to implement because this is where you can really get creative with your work. Some examples of contrast are small and large fonts, bold and thin fonts, old-fashioned fonts, and modern fonts, and also by using small and wide spaces in your fonts. Contrast is in no way limited to fonts, but because we are working in PowerPoint on a slide, we are going to be focusing on fonts. So those are hopefully the most helpful examples, but there are many more. As you can see here, this is a slide that we had finished in the repetition video, and now we're going to be implementing contrast. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look to create contrast in the thickness of the font. I'm using the same font throughout, which is Calibri, because it is a very easy to read font, especially in TV. But the font is bolded, and that is strategic specifically to do a TV because we want our text to be big, nice, and legible for our audience. However, it does create more of a flat look and definitely does not emphasize the concept of contrast. So now we're going to pick and choose what pieces are going to be bolded and what pieces aren't. The first line I'm going to remove the bold from is the top line. And I'm also going to remove the bolding from the bottom line. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to change the font sizes. In order to show contrast in font size, there really needs to be a big jump in size. Right now, I'm going to increase the size of this paragraph to make it more noticeable since it is the most important content on the slide. So I'm going to make that font 48. And I'm also going to bring this font down. I brought this line size down to 28 to really emphasize the contrast of this paragraph right here. But as you can see here, it still breaks up into two lines, and I really want it to be on one line. I also don't want to go under font 28, especially on TV, because it becomes too small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just edit this down. And there we go. So I just removed one word, and now it's able to fit on one line. The next thing that I'm going to do is italicize certain parts of this slide, just to give it that extra distinction between the lines. I'm going to start with this line. I'm going to italicize that. I'm also going to italicize Lobby Bistro. And I'm also going to italicize the bottom line. Now you can see there is a lot of distinction between this line with this section and this line at the bottom. And I think the last thing I'm going to do is to remove the bolding on this line here because it is a bit strong and I find it's competing with the line up top. So I'm going to remove that bold, and there we go. I believe that that's a lot easier to read, and the focus is less on this now and it's more on these lines, which is exactly what I want. So that's it for the concept of contrast. And as you can see here, all of the 4 concepts of the CRAP design series are put into play. Going backwards as we did with our tutorials, we have proximity, alignment, repetition, and now contrast. Thank you so much for tuning in for these 4 weeks and making it to the end of this series. Until next time, keep on publishing.